Welcome to this MicroFocus ZenWorks configuration video tutorial discussing the different methods and upgrade paths to migrate your ZenWorks 2017, either Windows or Linux zone, to ZenWorks 2020, with a quick demonstration using a Windows as a primary server. If you have an appliance primary server in your zone, there is another presentation and demonstration with the information on the appliance upgrade to ZCM 2020. As an overview, test and upgrade strategies will be talked about, planning tasks, system requirements, which are really important, backup and pre-upgrade as well as post-upgrade tasks, maintenance and cleanup, debug and logging information, commands and resources, and the demonstration itself. Test and upgrade strategy reminders. Remember to verify the checksum of all downloaded files, whether it's a ZDC or the ISO or the VM HyperVisor file. Upgrade servers on the same subnets with fast connections to the databases. Licenses, have them available during the upgrade or installation. Verify external system communications if you have ZRS or ZSD connected or some other communication like LDAP. Review, update your company's ZenWorks documentation to get familiar with the environment. Configure new features and enhancements. Don't perform OS upgrades, at least the major versions where ZCM is installed. Verify time sync between servers and database. Don't run upgrade in a SSH or PuTTY session in case you get disconnected, then you might run into some problems. Prop up a test environment for simulation. Planning tasks. Again, review the corporate ZCM environment documentation, identify the external system communications, LDAP, user sources, and so forth. Verify the ZCM 2020 prerequisites, the primary server, the databases, the satellites, managed devices, and even inventory-only devices if you're doing that. Know your ZCM scheduled, the system update schedules, the patch download schedule, the messaging, and the cleanup schedules. It's all in ZCC. Identify your dedicated servers as well, so you know what's happening on that server at the time you're doing the upgrade. You may have a dedicated patch server that has a schedule for downloads. You don't want to either interfere with that or make sure you turn it off. Additional planning tasks. Make sure you have the user IDs with rights to systems available. ZCC administrators, the database SA, root or MicroFocus customer care portal. That way you're not delayed when you need to grab that license or that file download. Hopefully you've prepped ahead of time, but if you need to get to something, at least you have the password to do so. Database migration required. Remember, ZCM 2020 doesn't support Sybase. So we have a database migration tool that will migrate from Sybase to PostgreSQL. That way you're supported on 2020 when you migrate 2017 to 2020. The Vertica database needed. If you're a large enough organization and you want to deploy the Vertica database, you'll need to know that appliance is necessary. Certificates expiration. Double check your primary and satellite server and CA server certificates so they don't expire during this time frame that you're doing an upgrade. Also, the mobile certificate is a max 2 years, and that's an Apple requirement now if you're doing any mobile device management. ZCM 2020 keys, product license keys, system update registration keys, and if you have an appliance, because of the Vertica database, the appliance online update channel key. Make sure you have those things available during the upgrade so you're not held up. Also, run the upgrade in a test environment. And most of all, have a backup plan. System requirements, server OS. This particular slide will show you a migration path from any individual zone version to the next. So if you're at 11.4, you need to get to 2017 update 0 minimum. And in order to get to 2020 from there, you need to go to directly from 2017 update 0 to 2020. Well, depending on the servers you have, you could see that server 2008 is no longer supported after 11.4. So you'll need to migrate off of that, getting a Windows 2012 server in place, or let's say SLES or Red Hat. This helps you with that migration and planning out those paths. System requirements database. So for your ZenWorks database, this shows the different databases, whether they're internal or external, and what versions are supported as you move to the next version. HyperVisors as well. This shows you the hypervisor versions and the supported platforms that are supported for each one of the versions. System requirements for RAM, CPU cores, and disk space. This hasn't changed too much until you get to 2020. You can see pretty much it changed from 11.4 to 2017, and then moving from 2017 to 2020 it changed again for at least the minimum and recommended RAM. Part of that is due to the Vertica database. And then the disk space needed for installations. Hasn't changed too much, but double check on this or the documentation to make sure that you're within specifications. LDAP user sources, dependencies, and certificates. Same thing goes. After 11.4, .NET 4.5 has been used straight throughout. Same with LDAP version 3 and simple bind with read. So not much has changed here, but double check this. Make sure your documentation states what you need for what you're going to, which version you're going to. System requirements, reporting server, mobile browser, and management. If you're doing mobile management, double check these specs, as well as the reporting server. And finally, system requirements for display and browser support. This hasn't changed except for the new releases of the different browsers. The display, video adapter, and screen minimum resolution hasn't changed at all. Some of the backup tasks: backup the ZCM primary server, backup the ZCM database, ZenWorks audit, and then when you get to 2020, don't forget the Vertica database if you have it deployed. Backup and verify customizations and settings, system variables, FTFs, TFTP, and images. You can do some of that with the zman command ZSB and zman command DB if you have an internal database. External content repo, and then of course back up your databases if they're external. Pre-upgrade tasks: run ZenWorks Diagnostic Center on each primary and each database. Migrate and move database is obviously conditional. If you're on Sybase, you're going to have to migrate. If you're still supported on 2020 for the database you're on, then you won't have to do any moves or migrations. Identify the first master primary with the internal database or the CA role. Configure the available disk space. That's the required disk space for a primary server and database for doing the install. Again, conditional. If you're a larger organization and you're going to use a Vertica database, you're going to require another appliance, which could be another primary server in the zone, which requires additional RAM and disk space. And stop ZenWorks services on all other primaries except the first master primary, and you will get prompted for this during the wizard. Upgrade the zone to ZCM 2020. On the non-appliances, download and mount after checking checksum. Launch the ZenWorks 2020 installer on the first primary server, and you can do this either GUI or command line. Go through the wizard to complete the upgrade. ZCC system updates need to show successful before you move to the next primary server. ZCC system updates should show successful on all primary servers before you go to the satellite servers. You want to make sure that the primary servers and the satellite servers are complete, then the zone is up to date. Now you just have to roll out to the managed devices. Post-upgrade tasks: restore or verify external system communications, LDAP user sources, ZRS connections, ZSD connections, etc. Remember, if you're on Sybase and you're connected on your 2017 zone to ZSD, and you now migrated to Postgres, and you upgraded to 2020, you're going to need to reconnect ZSD to that particular database, the Postgres database. Start configuring the new features. back up the new ZCM and its components, and update the corporate ZCM environment documentation. Maintenance and cleanup. So for file cleanup, be careful about some superseded versions. They may be needed for previous versions to functions. Like 17.4.1 needs some 17.4.0 files, and you could refer to this TID for an example, 7012.095. Also, another example is if using imaging with older agents, you need to make sure that you still have the support for that. Also, if migrated from the Sybase database, future ZCM 2020 updates will clean up the residual Sybase information because it's no longer supported. And once you get to 2020, there's no turning back to Sybase at all. ZCM debug and other logs. Of course, you have the debug settings and logs in TID 341.8069. This is for all versions of ZenWorks. Other logs for Linux you might have is the messages log, the zipper log, the Apache error log, Jetty logs, and data model logs. Also on Windows, the standard location, which is logs, or the system update, and the update GUID is the directory the logs are in. Troubleshooting upgrade process failures. Check the debug and logging with TID 341.8069 for that particular area that you're trying to debug. Check migration progress. You can tail F the ZCM migration log or watch it in Windows. Service started, making sure the services are started. Again, for the Linux, you'd run the systemctl status Zen Postgres. Or for Windows, you can look at the services MSC. You can check for the Postgres package rpm-qa pipe grep Postgres and see the package if it's installed. And again, this is if you have the internal Postgres database. The other thing you could look for is in the ZDM XML and the Zen Audit XML that it shows the proper database, whether it's Postgres or Oracle or MS SQL. Upgrades of the database schema. You can check that with the latest ZDC. You've installed 2020. You can run ZDC at any time. It does not impact your system at all. It just retrieves information about your system, which will tell us the integrity of your system files, your tables, your database, your indexes, and so forth. The one reason why I bring this up is because if you started a migration of your database, there's an option in there that if the database migration fails from Sybase to Postgres, you could then stop it and then resume. But it may have already copied some bad tables. So if you do get that, it's best to restart from the beginning so it gets everything incomplete. And you'll see that in the database migration 4-part series of using the migration tool. There's details, Postgres, migrating your MS SQL, Sybase, and Oracle. ZCM commands you could use. Remember the TID has some of those, 341.8069. You can use the Novell ZenWorks configure -c start, and you could use that on Linux or Windows, or the Windows Services MSC. Some Zman commands you could use. If you want to back up your ZenWorks zone configuration, not your database, but your configuration, you can use Zman ZSB. If you wanted to back up your internal database, if you're using one, Zman DB. And database connection credentials. You can always get those with Zman DGC and Zman DGCA, should you need to get into the database with credentials. And that's the internal database. And of course, the services command, you can use the initd Novell Zen server status if you're SLES11. SLES12 or later, you can use the systemctl, or again, the Novell ZenWorks configure -c system status command. The command to look at the Postgres internal database on Linux is systemctl status zenpostgres.service. ZCM resources, there's plenty of them out there. Micro Focus ZenWorks configuration management documentation sites. There's ZCM 2020, 2017, and 11.4. They're there in full entirety. However, if you look up the cookbook for the version you're upgrading, you can also find the documentation within there. Also, it has reminders and quick links to other areas so that you can get information much quicker. Micro Focus Ideas portals for ZenWorks and other products is out on the community site, as well as the ZenWorks public forums. Be sure to use the forums. There's plenty of knowledgeable people out there that can answer your questions. NTS goes out there and tries to monitor that, as well as partners, as well as colleagues that have been through what you might be going through. ZenWorks Cool Solutions has great tips and webinars. There's on-demand training course and free videos. So if you look at that course catalog for on-demand training, there are free videos out there and training courses for a lot of the Micro Focus products, including ZenWorks Configuration Management, ZenWorks Service Desk, and Desktop Containers. There is also a Micro Focus Zencast bi-weekly live discussions and demonstrations, and you can see the recordings as well. Subscribe to the Micro Focus Support and Training YouTube channel, and you'll get notifications. You can also see the recordings out there under the youtube.com user Novell demo. This particular Zencast is broadcasted the first and third Tuesday of every month at 9 o'clock Mountain Time, North America. So you can tune in and you can ask your questions right on chat, and we'll do our best to answer them, or we'll give you some information so that we can make sure you get the answers you need. Now for the demonstration, demonstrating the ZCM 2020 upgrade on a Windows platform. We're going to show you this demonstration and walk you through it real quick. It is time-lapsed. We're going to first go out to the Novell documentation for ZCM 2020, review the what's new, system requirements, and upgrade processes. Then we're going to go to the cookbook, which has direct links to the documentation, downloads, ZDCs, and other things, as well as known issues for the ZCM 2020 upgrade. We're going to go to the customer portal and look at our product keys. We can download those there. We can download our product here, whether it's the ISO or whether it's the VMs or appliances. And we can get the supporting files as well. If you notice, the DB Migration Tool 3.1 is currently out there, as well as a Novell ZenWorks prep.zip file, which preps the appliance VA storage volume. Next, we're going to go to the Customer Center, and under Entitlements, you can actually see your ZenWorks Update Entitlements, which is your online update registration keys for your appliance, as well as your NCC and system update keys. We're going to log into this zone, and we're going to see that this particular zone has a PostgreSQL database. And we're currently going to mount the 2020 ISO downloaded after checking the checksum. Start the install and the setup.exe or setup.sh on Linux. The wizards are the same. You'll pick your language and then go ahead and go through the install, accept the license agreement. And then there's a possible prereqs warning. We're not using DNS, and 8 gig for this is fine. This is the first server in the management zone to be upgraded. So in this demonstration, we're going to log in using the administrator credentials. ZDC automatically runs in the background. The database schema verifications only, and reports are here in this directory under the logs. You can review them at your time. Next, you can go ahead and accept and the option to change licensing between the suite and the components of ZenWorks. So if you have the suite license, you can go ahead and enter it here. If you have the component license, you can enter it on the other wizard. It does ask you that you have confirmed that all ZenWorks service on other primary servers have been stopped and you have backups, because it's about to upgrade the database and the system files on this first primary server. Next, it will go out and start the install. The pre-upgrade summary is complete. The install button is selected, and you'll see what is going on during this time. Now this is time-lapsed, but you can see it installed the latest Postgres because it has a Postgres database. It's going to go ahead and double check the system of Postgres and upgrade it if necessary. In this case, it does. But this bar here shows you the details that's going on during this upgrade. We'll go ahead and speed up the time lapse so you can see it's upgrading the database schema. Now it's importing the update into the zone, which is for the system files. Now that it's extracted and imported all of the updates into the zone, it can start upgrading the packages, which are all the files and different systems and components for the ZenWorks configuration management system. Now we had to go ahead and it'll ask you to whether or not you want to restart the system or not. And that's not the server, it's a system. So it's starting services. We decline to restart the system itself. We're going to run the system status check first. Then we'll reboot the device and the ZenWorks services will start. After that, it'll need to rebuild the deployment packages. So at this point, we haven't rebooted yet. We have the upgrade is complete. It seems to be post-upgrade status is good. Now we are going to check our ZCC. And since we haven't rebooted yet, it's going to detect that no reboot has occurred. It'll tell us which ones are in process right now. That's our Windows server. And you can see under system updates that it's still pending. And it's awaiting a reboot. Okay, so let's go ahead and reboot this system. Now that we're rebooted, we're going to open up the ZenWorks Control Center. See what the next activity for the system update is going on, which is rebuilding those deployment packages. See that 2020 is installed. It's recognized by doing a refresh and inventory, quick inventory. We can now see that it is still pending. That's because it's rebuilding deployment packages. Once that's complete, like right now, it just finished, we can now see that it's successful. At this point, we can do the next primary server. Now that we've finished with the Windows platform, there are some other demonstrations you may need to be aware of. If you're still on Sybase, you can use the Micro Focus ZCM database migration tool. And there's a 4-part series depending on what type of database you're migrating, but the details is a very important one and all the migration options for databases. There's a demo using the ZCM 2020 installer ISO, so if you forget to migrate your Sybase and you bring up the 2020 ISO, it'll automatically go into the database migration for you, telling you that you have to do that first. And then there's a demo using the DB migration tool going from the internal Sybase to the PostgreSQL, and then the DB migration tool going from external MS SQL to PostgreSQL. So in summary, we've talked about the test upgrade strategies, the pre-upgrade, backup, migration method tasks, and post-upgrade tasks, system requirements, debug and logging information, resources, and had a demonstration. We hope this clears up some of the questions of what you can expect when upgrading to Micro Focus ZenWorks Configuration Management to ZCM 2020 on a Windows or Linux primary server. Thank you for watching.